All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another hosting.com live stream. Today is going to be so fun. This has been, I think, 2 months in the works since I started talking to Daphne about what we're doing with SEO at hosting.com. And my SEO knowledge is ancient. It's old. It needs to be updated. But I've been curious for the last couple of years with the advent of AI and different things. The competition with SEO, traditional SEO that I might know, has gotten even more competitive, but there's some disruptions going on. When I posed this to Daphne, she goes, "Oh, let me share what we're doing at hosting.com." Now, we are a global company. We are a big company. We take SEO, pay-per-click, everything very seriously. It's the lifeblood of our business. So today I have Daphne Monroe, head of website and content at hosting.com. She's the one architecting, leading our SEO strategy at hosting.com. So she's going to be sharing some great things today, and I'm so pumped she's able to be here. And by the way, she's going to be on more. She's already signed up for more. So this is one of many. You can find the YouTube interview. We talked about SEO in 2025 on our YouTube channel. That is an excellent one. You're going to want to take notes from that. But today we're going to get down to the practical things of SEO for LLMs. Daphne, thank you for being on today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself too and your
Yeah,
background? And then I'm going to turn the show over to you.
perfect. Thank you so much, Corey, and thank you so much for inviting me today. So I'm Daphne Monroe. I am the head of website and content at hosting.com, which is a mouthful of a title. We work on everything that happens on the website. So from the technical foundation to the content that we create, performance metrics, all things considered. But my passion for websites actually began through SEO specifically. So I've been working in SEO probably for almost a decade, and just making sure that we get the right people showing in the right spaces for the right queries. And the one thing I love about SEO is that it's always been about finding the right way to get to the top, but the right way is actually always about doing the best work possible. Where some people may think that SEO is a big hacking job with black hat strategies that maybe used to work. But through every algorithm update and through the more and more data that we collect on it, at the end of the day, creating something that's fantastic is really just the way that you win. So we're going to dive in today with how we can make fantastic things show up in LLMs, how we use traditional SEO to do just that, what things have changed, and what we need to know right away. At the end of this presentation, there are some takeaways that we can implement today. So there's some steps to get running with right away. But yeah, let's dive in. Let's start from the top. So what is GEO, LLMO, and AEO? Well, there are lots of different ways to explain the process of optimizing your content to show up on any of these AI chat tools. So think Claude, ChatGPT, uh, all that stuff that I'm sure we're all using every day now. So this is just an overview of the strategies we use. And at the moment, because it's so new, there's lots of different names and people are trying to really hone down on what exactly that is. But it is just SEO. SEO is search engine optimization. People are searching in these tools, and we just need to use our strategies to make sure that we're showing up for the different queries and with the right sentiment. Um, if we head on to the next slide, we can see what SEO is specifically when we're considering LLMs or large language models. So ChatGPT is the number one I can think of. So SEO for LLMs includes all of your classics. So ensuring that we've got the right hierarchy and structure to our content. You maybe would implement H1s, H2s, different tags to allow crawlers to understand what they're reading on your site. Those are still really, really valid, and we definitely need to still be using those. So that's why it's not that different, but there are some new things that we can do. So on the hosting.com website, we actually do all of our content in Markdown instead of HTML. And this is just a much cleaner way to write content in code that can be digested by these crawlers in a very simple manner, meaning the easier it is to crawl your site, the more likely you are to show up in these different spaces. So I put kind of a checklist together for you here. So we need to make sure that our site is referenced, that our structure is clean, that we have the right intent-based queries. We're going to dive into what that means a bit later, but really we're focusing on the right keywords for our niche and our audience. We're creating original and helpful content. That's the number one thing. I'm sure everybody's heard about Google's helpful content update. It happened a few years ago. That has kind of pushed the needle for content creation forever. We need to make sure that we're creating things that are really real and valid. Building authority, not keyword stuffing, and maintaining crawlability. Those are other examples of what SEO for LLMs include. I also just popped in a picture here of the AI citation overview on Ahrefs. I don't really dive too much into tools today because there's so many new tools and they're all trying to catch up with each other, and I really need to spend more time diving into them. But we do use Ahrefs, and this little AI overview has been very helpful to just see how we're performing, how we benchmark against competitors. So I'd recommend checking that out as well. And I put together an idea of chat and action using myself, little humble brag. But when talking to different bots, I wanted to know who is Daphne Monroe. Well, she is me. And these are some of the responses that we got. And this just goes to show the many different ways that crawlers are digesting content and spitting it out. And the thing that's really unique about this is that every single user is going to have a different experience. So my bots probably know that I'm Daphne Monroe. I do like to talk about myself. Your bot might not, but the more we engage, the more we create content and build this authority over time, the more likely we are to show up in these spaces. So that's just an overview of some of the 4 go-to ones that I've used. But if we head to the next slide, we can have a quick think about why it's so important today to be implementing SEO for LLMs. So the data shows us that nearly 60% of Google searches ended without a click last year. This is overview of all the SERP of 2024. The reason that's really important is because if you're a traditional SEO specialist, you probably use click-through rates as one of your core KPIs. So we need to start to rethink KPIs, and we need to start to rethink what that user journey looks like when they engage with our content, even if that content doesn't ultimately land these users onto our site. On the next slide, you'll see just a silly meme that I wanted to show you because I've been getting this a lot. I've actually had somebody at hosting.com send me this and asking for some more information. And at the end of the day, traditional SEO is not dead. On-page content, off-page links, content marketing and technical SEO are so important. But this is kind of the stuff that's hitting the web, going around on LinkedIn at the moment. And it just makes me chuckle because it's not dead. It's just moving up a tier. It's shaping itself in a new way that we just have to meet it where it's at. So it's not dead, it's different. And the ways that it's different, especially for the content creation side, is the way that these bots actually digest the content that we're creating. So LLMs are known to go much deeper than crawlers would before. They're going to much deeper pages. They're not necessarily relying on spidering through all of your different links. They are probably finding links through all sorts of different platforms like social media that Google historically has not wanted to do or not put much authority towards. And at the end of the day, everything that's traditional and foundational and white hat SEO, such as good internal linking, good structure, this is all still the case. Your site speed probably doesn't matter as much in this scenario because crawlers are going to be crawling your site anyways, and it doesn't really have the same impact that you would in a traditional SEO sense. But at the end of the day, these are just some of the key differences. So when I think about foundational SEO and my history with working in SEO, I've always chunked it up into 4 different pillars. The first pillar, and you'll hear me talking about this a lot, is content, because content is king. And at the end of the day, if you're going to show up in these places, we need to have the words on the page. So we'll dive into that more. We also have the technical side. So this is schema markup, the performance metrics, offsite, how other people are talking about you, the links that you get back to you, and then the user experience of your site. I also think is extremely important for traditional SEO and to get yourself ranking. I'd say user experience is probably less important from an LLM perspective, because they're really creating their own experience through these LLM tools, where traditionally you would want the user to get to your site and be able to get from a query to a transaction as quickly as possible, where they're probably doing some of that heavy lifting now with ChatGPT, for example. Anyways, I could chat about foundational SEO forever, but we're going to dive into what's new and what's changing. So I've broken it down into 3 different steps. The first big pillar or foundational block to SEO for LLMs is clarity. I've said it a few times already, but the structure of your site, making sure you have one H1, H2s where appropriate, and H3s nested beneath. Making sure that your headings make sense so it's scannable and digestible. We also have seen great results from doing bullet pointed lists, summaries, TLDRs, any sort of thing that can quickly summarize what's going on. The biggest difference in this strategy to traditional SEO is you used to want to write a very long blog targeting a keyword and kind of hide the answers later on, taking somebody on a journey because you had a target word count. You just you needed people to scroll down the page and get to the bottom, because scroll depth is an important KPI as well. But now we kind of just want to summarize it and keep it up front and as close to the top as possible so it can be summarized. If you go back to the next one, to authority, authority is also now more important than ever. Google's EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, has been around for a long time, and we know that we need to be working to achieve those targets. How do we do that? We create things like author bios, credentials, share if you've won an award, make sure we're talking about all the other people who are talking great about us as well. Brand and expert mentions, linked and unlinked. So unlinked mentions actually have a hefty pull when it comes to LLMs, where traditionally in SEO, you would definitely want to go and seek that link. I still am putting time and effort into our link building strategies here at hosting.com. I don't think that's something that we should stop doing, but it's also great to know that there are rewards and results from unlinked mentions as well. It was Ahrefs that put together a good overview of that and how it performed different in LLMs that I highly recommend checking out. Another area that you can build authority and trust is using user-generated content forums like Reddit. Reddit, if you're a traditional SEO, you will have noticed started creeping into the SERPs a couple years ago. Lots and lots of Reddit listings. And at first people were like, well, that can't be right. And then people are like, oh no, this is sticking around. So we better get to it. We better make sure that we're showing up in these places too. So definitely put Reddit on your to-do list and get engaging with your audience. I don't mean go in and send them links to your webinars, but I mean like actually engage and see what they're saying, and give helpful answers. That's how you build authority and trust. And then finally, just consistency. So make sure we're using the same title. I have a problem with calling myself Daphne Jasmine Monroe on some platforms, DJ on others. So I need to start honing in on who I want to be exactly to make sure that I show up better in those spaces as well. But the same goes for your business. So you definitely want to make sure that you're being consistent with how you speak about yourself across the web. And then finally, we have the intent. So the user's intent is the most important thing. Why is somebody looking for you or your services or your products right now? How do we make sure that we have the right content to match them with that intent? That's my favorite thing about SEO, is the intent-driven focus of it, because you can meet users wherever they are in the funnel, and you can have informational, transactional, navigational, whatever you need. So we're not losing intent, we're honing in on it, and we need to start creating value dense content around that. So when you're doing your keyword research, make sure that you're answering things that you can fully help and answer with great content. So if we take a look at AI overviews on Google specifically, we can see that just 4.5% of the pages being used in that AI overview were page one rankers. That's really significant because page one, the top 3 positions, that's kind of less important these days because there are so many different variations of what a user is looking for and different ways that's going to be served up. As we saw with the different LLMs, they answer things differently to different people. They get to know you. I do believe that this is going to change on Google as well, and I do see a future with personalized SERPs. There's definitely some personalization happening already, but I think it's going to go another step further. And another great thing here is just if you're not ranking positions 1 to 3, but you're still churning out good content, that you're still going to benefit from it. So you can take some of the pressure off and just focus on being great. So sorry again to talk about content, but this is where we're going to start. We need to choose topics that are relevant to our audience. We need to stop churning out AI slop. So that one's really important. If you want to show up, do not use ChatGPT to write your blog because ChatGPT is already going to answer that question. You need to come up with things that are original and that come from your brain and are valuable to your customers. So I am not saying don't use AI as a tool to help you create content. Definitely do. I do every day. But you need that extra step. You need that next layer. And if you want real results, you have to put the time and effort into it at the end of the day. Of course, we already talked about semantic HTML, Markdown, and EEAT. So let's move on to the next one. What do you want to write about? So creating content is easy to talk about, but actually getting it going is hard to do. So diving into your niche, who are your customers? What are they looking for? What are your products? How do you use them? Can you do a tutorial or a guide? Can you do a collection of what you've learned in the last year? There's so many things, but the things that really rank well are factual answers to questions, breakdowns and comparisons, having glossaries and definitions to the terms you use, especially if you're a tech-heavy site. Having a glossary that explains what you're saying and why you're saying it is very important. And just always be thinking about the users at the end of the day. You need to focus on what people actually want to be engaging with, because even traditional SEO KPIs do come down to things like engagement rate, time spent on page, and we need to stick with that. This is just a quick look at what's changed. So traditional SEO, top 10 positions were clearly the most important thing, still are very important to me, I'm not going to lie. But for SEO for LLMs, having any page anywhere on the web, on your website or not, it's going to be beneficial. Authority was focused heavily on backlinks and domain ratings. Now it's more focused on being mentioned by others in a positive way, hopefully, EEAT, and the context of those pages. The format, we used to want to be very structured but long. Now we can chunk, we can summarize, and we can take some pressure off of hitting those character counts. Although I'd still would highly suggest that you spend enough time to answer things completely and topically whole. Don't just do a quick blurb of a summary for a whole blog, because that's probably not going to be answering what that user was wanting from that experience as well. Crawl targets. So the homepage obviously is a priority for many websites, but now we can focus on things like PDFs, user-generated content, and blogs. And then the outcomes have changed. So we're shifting away from clicks to more about citations and quoted snippets. And then again, that Ahrefs, like AI overview, quick look at where you're showing up is a good tool as well.
Hey, Daphne, there's 2 things that really stuck out a part of this. When I see this top one right here, it says any page anywhere on the web. For our agency owners at hosting.com, that's huge because there's, when the smartphones, you get more app-based. And I just saw right here is why it's so important for any business, any person to have a website, especially in
Absolutely.
the age of AI. So that was the first one. And then the second was how you said the outcomes have changed. This is something we talked about in the past. Clicks, it was all about click through rate, right? Now it's how you're showing up. And I love that as you're going to go, I'm sure you're going to share this, but what that means, because you think about everybody, just to set this stage for a second, think about the business we run as hosting.com. What do we ultimately want is you to come to our website, to click the buy button and to finish the checkout, right? So that's what SEO had measured previously, Daphne. And it's so interesting. Now it's about citations and those quote snippets. Do you have anything else you want to share on that note about what we've seen and experienced? Because I think it's so compelling.
Yeah, I mean, taking it back to the any page anywhere on the web part, as obviously having control of your content and having your own website is fundamental. Definitely make that your first step wherever you are with your business. If you don't have a website, get a website started today, and yes, start building out who you are. A big area we've been spending time on for the hosting.com website is the about us page. And from a ROI perspective, you probably would be like, well, shouldn't we be putting lots of time and energy into our product portfolio right now? But putting time and effort into the about us page and sharing our story and who we are and how we got here is going to lift up those other pages too. That those credentials, that trust, and also just having such a great team of experts to shout about is phenomenal, and you really will benefit from it. So yeah, building out different pages than you normally would have thought. Like, don't just leave it at the products. Don't just leave it at the highest search volume keyword blog. Like, go deep. Tell us more. Let us learn about you, because that's what these crawlers are doing as they hit your website. They want to know everything so they can show you up in more places.
Okay, for those agency owners tuning in, writing notes, that's something you can go back to your clients and say, the web and your website is more important than ever. So think about how Daphne's thinking about this and doing this. You go, I want to give them the AI, the LLMs, as much information as possible when they craft a response to a prompt or a question. So there's one thing. One, you got to have your website. Second, she just noted, and I've been working on this project with you, by the way, Daphne, is our about page. Why does that matter? Well, we know from a social trust standpoint and everything else, but she's just giving you some really good things to go back to your clients today while your website's available. And that second, how things have changed a little bit with the citations and what we're trying to really get there. So I'm so sorry, Daphne, but I couldn't help myself seeing those two things go. That's where we connected back to your clients today and your own website,
Amazing.
right? So, okay, back to you.
Yeah, no, please keep it coming. I mean, it's easier to have a little bit back and forth as well. um, but yes, this is just a quick overview. One other thing that I do want to add, just on that topic of things that you could do today for yourself and your clients, is if you have some high performing blogs, or even just some old blogs that aren't high performing, add a summary, add some FAQs, and create that crawlable quick win content, bullet pointed lists, things that are easy to digest. That's something that you should be putting some focus on right now. And don't leave the old stuff. Like, if you've had a website for 15 years and you have old blogs, I do recommend a content consolidation at some point, but go back and freshen them up, because Google also places energy on monitoring the freshness of content. So we always want to go back and update and optimize. And sorry, now I'm on a tangent, but make sure that you're updating and optimizing just one URL as well. So if you do a yearly review, but you're adding the year in the slug and creating a new blog instead of building on one long page, you're actually creating some cannibalism with yourself and some internal competition that you don't need to be doing. I digress.
Okay, no, this is gold. Everybody was hearting different things because now you have something to go back to your clients, a second thing. And here's one thing we could do to help you. Look at their analytics. As an agency owner, you're likely doing website maintenance plans, right? Care plans, as we call them in the agency success community. But now you can go back and go, hey, people more. I saw today, Daphne, 750 million users with just ChatGPT. So comparison, Instagram, Facebook, It is a social, well, maybe not the social part, but it is a huge platform. So you just got two things you can go back to your clients. By the way, do you know your website is more important than ever? And second, what if we updated that top blog post today and started working on your about page or whatever else? So just want to bring this down. What she's sharing, she's so good and she's sharing it right through. But I want you to connect this and go back and use this today. Okay, back to you, Daphne.
Thanks, Corey. I just saw a comment come in really quickly that just said that that was a little confusing, and I can understand. So I apologize because I was talking fast and very excited. So I'm just going to say it one more time. So when you're creating articles and blogs, you want to create something that is topically complete. So I'm trying to think of it as an example, maybe like our 10 best websites. So I had created a blog in 2018, and it was our 10 best websites. Now it's 2025 and I have 10 better websites. Instead of creating a new one, I'm going to go back to that old one and update the content there. The reason that we do this is because crawlers attribute authority to existing URLs. So that's why when you do a site migration, for example, you want to keep the structure of the existing URLs where possible, unless you have no structure and need to create a new site architecture or something like that. But SEO is also very instance based. So it depends on how many blogs you have, what keywords you were targeting, and what that looks like. But hopefully that example helped
Well,
explain.
I think it's a way to think about content, everyone. And I have to remind myself, Daphne, when you're sharing this, you're not just sharing for the LLMs, but you're also thinking the whole spectrum. Google is extremely important to us. So these things are good things that I could see from some of the older SEO knowledge I knew is you wanted to go update and freshen up. Is it still that old, really high performing content? And I think that's the principle you're going back to. Update that versus create new URL. And that's a
Absolutely.
merging of strategies there, and I love it.
Thanks, Corey.
Next one.
Well, let's go to the next slide then. So this is just an overview of keyword research and how I do it. This is not the one and only way. I just wanted to share how I do it, how I go at it, and hopefully get you some ideas. So this is probably a very familiar screen to many of us, but there's lots of different tools that you can use to get started. I always start with a core word. Of course, hosting is a go-to. So that's what I'm using in my example today. And what you can see here and what's different than traditional SEO is back in the day, you would probably want to create multiple blogs for every keyword instance. And even if they're kind of answering the same topic, they could all exist. And actually, they used to perform. But I keep on saying topically complete and topically whole. That's the way that things are shifting now. So instead of creating a bunch of different articles for this, I would create just one and make sure that we are targeting all of these keywords. And you don't even need to really put the full keyword in anymore. Semantic keywords are highly valued, and Google is getting smarter, and you don't need to be so literal. We've seen great results for keywords that aren't in the meta title or in the H1, but they're still targeted in the content and they're answering that query. And that's the important part. So you can have a little bit more fun. You don't need to focus on putting exactly what is website hosting. You could just say, what's website hosting? So look at this. I always would go through the keywords. I'd put those keywords into Google as well and see what's showing up. A lot of times when they're similar, you'll see if I put in these 3 different keywords, probably the same top 5 articles will be ranking, just in different orders for those. And that's also a good idea to get started for how you want to be answering these questions, because skyscraping content, taking what's existing and then elevating it, is still an extremely valuable method, because somebody's there and they're there for a reason. We might as well learn from them. And then, of course, add our bit that takes it that next level further.
Hey, Daphne, real quick, what keyword tool or where do you go to start with research? And I'm sorry I interrupted yet again.
No.
Good
I use
question.
Ahrefs. I have always used Ahrefs, but there's plenty of other great ones. There's SEMrush. I mean, Screaming Frog isn't for keywords, but it's also a tool I highly recommend.
Okay.
And if you don't want to purchase a tool, if you're early in your journey, you can also use like Google Keyword Planner, which is created for ads, but it gives you that data. So if you don't want to invest yet, there's alternative options.
By the way, so many good questions coming in, Daphne. I'm so glad I know you're coming back in a couple of weeks, a month, I think. We're scheduling it. So these things you want to hear about, keep posting the questions in the Zoom app here. And also say, we need Daphne back. So, all right.
Well, yeah, looking forward to coming back. And there's a whole world we can dive into. So yeah, I could go all day. So diving a little bit deeper into keyword research. So of course we need a topical completeness. We need to prevent thin content. So even though we're going to add these summaries and TLDRs and all that good stuff, we don't want things that are just thin and useless. And that kind of goes back to that AI slop that I was mentioning earlier. We need to make sure that there's value in what we're saying. Um, Unnecessary content sprawl. I think this is going to answer some of the questions I can see coming in. And it ties in with the topical completeness as well. We don't need all of these pages over here. We can have just like this one really, really good page. And we could tie that with an infographic. We could tie that with a press release and get some links to it. We could put a lot of energy into one good piece of content instead of 10 little tiny pieces of content. Aligning with how users actually search. So this is going back to putting that query into Google and seeing what's going on and learning from it. And then internal linking is still an extremely valuable tool, especially for Google, because it's the only way that you can show a crawler what page goes where with that anchor text. So if you're creating a content cluster around hosting, we want to make sure that we're actually linking to all of these other hosting pages as well. So yes, content clusters, they're not dead. Don't stop creating content clusters. We still need to have our pillar pages in our subtopics, but let's make sure that our subtopics are topically complete. Sorry for my very bad little slide there.
We forgive you.
I'm not an artist.
Okay, next slide.
Cool. Yes, please. Sorry. So content clusters on your site are very important, but how people speak about you off of your site is equally, if not more important, especially for LLMs. So getting mentions on reputable sites boosts your credibility. Duh. Digital PR builds trust. So this is an area that we've been spending some time with our partners here, creating different campaigns that are about hosting or about website or about internet usage that aren't necessarily relevant to our products. But we found some awesome data. So then we have built relationships with journalists to share that, to hopefully get these mentions or to be somebody they come back to in the future to get quotes from because they know we know what we're talking about. So digital PR, highly recommend spending time on that. And that doesn't necessarily have to be you hiring an agency either. That could be you just reaching out to the PR requests on Twitter or X. There's a place called, not a place, a company called Haro, Haro, Help a Reporter Out, where they send emails like twice a day, I think, and they ask for quotes back. I've actually been featured personally on one for my marriage, just for responding, because I had a humanitarian wedding. So it's just fun. You can get out there and get involved in different ways, but you don't really have much say about what that topic is going to be. Anyways, back into getting other people speaking about you. You need to focus on EAT, user-generated platforms. So that can be content that you create yourself as your company on those platforms, or working with influencers, or having faces of your business showing up more. Having those faces, I think, is the really key thing to what is important now. Because, yeah, you can ask ChatGPT a question, but it's not the same as asking somebody who's been doing it for 20 years. And they're actually, what they're doing is getting that information from these people and funneling it through there. So keeping on top of all of the relevant information going on in your niche and writing about it, publishing about it, and sharing who you are and why that matters is the key.
The question here, Daphne, is okay, when you say trust signals in the social video, is that in there
Oh,
too?
yes. I mean, video is interesting, especially if you're going to be putting things on YouTube, because YouTube is owned by Google. So definitely worth investing time and energy into putting any video content on Google. Video content on websites is iffy still, and in a way that it's not easy to be crawled. It doesn't have that structured data like we've been explaining that our text and content can. So the ways that we work with that is by having our transcripts shared, summaries, and making sure that we keep whatever we're talking about as crawlable and in front and center as possible. So you'll see, I mean, Corey, you know, we work together all the time.
Yeah.
That transcripts are a big part of this webinar series as well. So we can have everything written down and crawled. Not only does that help crawlers, but that also helps your audience in accessibility. So making sure that if somebody can't engage with your video content, that they can still engage with your written content. And that might mean putting a little bit more effort in and taking it the extra mile to do image descriptions, making sure that you have the alt text, but hopefully that's something that we've all been doing anyways. And just getting it written down. I do think video content is going to be crawled sooner rather than later. I mean, with the developments in AI, it's just been phenomenal. But for right now, let's play it safe. Let's make sure we have everything in writing as well.
So, hey, everybody, back to agency owners and your clients, right? So, look what she's saying. When you said PR, I kind of lit up a little bit, Daphne, because as we've talked, I had to ask one of the partners we work with, what does PR mean to you? And it's so interesting. If you think about the LLMs and AI, you're trying to give to a language model. So, give every reason you can. That's why I think you mentioned back down to Reddit. And I'm curious if you're going to say something about Reddit, because I know one of the conversations we had, I thought, whoa. And I connected it to home about how Reddit is a key part of all this.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
but all this is signals from the about page to other people talking about you. You want that to form that intelligence that LLMs see, read, think about what you're doing, right? That's a bigger
100%.
level than and making sure an algorithm at Google update doesn't crash you from traffic. This is much deeper. This is way deeper than it's ever been. So thank you. That was just a thought I had, but that's where some of these things that Daphne's saying connect back and share back. Hey, I was just on an amazing hosting.com educational webinar, and they blew my mind about SEO, about how we think about those things. So, okay.
Yeah. Another one that I didn't mention here actually is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, from a professional perspective, is a great source. And I asked it about me the other day, I asked ChatGPT about me, and it pulled up our video, Corey. And I was like, wow, that's great. So, yeah.
And
And then,
it's so easy to get the videos. If you do podcast, if your clients do podcast, your clients do video, there's a service, but you know a bunch. It's called Pod Squeeze. Get them transcribed, so make it easier in lieu of that day when they can just know what's on the video. So, okay, one last comment. I'm out.
cool. On the next slide, actually, the social media team and I were working on diving into all of the different social media platforms and their relevance in AI, and just gathering some data and seeing where we want to be investing and spending time. So this is just from the user-generated content side. I don't actually have the slide that has the numbers because we did a weighted system of which one to put time into. But I digress. It's important to be on all of them right now. Definitely TikTok, and definitely writing descriptions that explain what is going on. TikTok is booming. Your users are there, and repurpose that content, use it everywhere you can. But social media trust signals are a big pull as well. I'm diving into user-generated content a lot because of Reddit, and Reddit is a top priority right now, which I never thought in my professional career I would say, but it is. And you can see in the bottom of this slide where it has the AI overview numbers, we can see that Reddit receives over 12 million AI citations. So that is crazy. And if these LLMs are relying or the AI citations are relying on that content, it's really important that you're showing up there too. So go in there, and maybe you got to talk to some people you don't want to talk to, but own the conversation and show up. Be trustworthy, be honest, be real, and you will be rewarded for it. Okay. This is a lot of information in a little slide. But if we look at the breakdown of the sources to AI overviews, you can see that Reddit is having about 20% of that share, a little bit over 20% of that share. Wikipedia and YouTube are coming in at about 15. Official places like .gov and .education sites are showing up too, but less than you would have probably expected. I mean, we used to put a lot of focus on getting links from high domain authority sites, still do put a lot of focus on getting links from high domain authority sites. Definitely don't spend time getting them from the really low authority sites. But we can see here that that user-generated content is actually outperforming in the LLM space. So we can, it depends where you want to show up, and it's different for every person. But if you wanted to shift it to these different engagement platforms instead, you could still see some awesome results coming in from it. News, media, websites, etc. Still important. And we do know that foundationally, LLMs are using the rankings on Google as some sort of trust indicator. So the domain ranking is still important and building up that core score. And then down here, you can see the remainder is long form content and blogs, but that's 58%. So that's informational pieces of content that are dominating the AI overview. Definitely Reddit, but then your blogs as well. So put some time there. I rambled a lot on this one, so I'm just going to quickly skim those bullet points, make sure I didn't miss anything. No, looking good. Cool.
Hey, Daphne, I just wanted to mention again, back to your clients. Look, 58% is still from the long form. So how fast can we get more content going on our websites? And back to your clients, the importance of the website as a central part of their strategy of their business. Obviously, we run it exclusively through our own website. So anyway, that number right there, we'll have these in recording. We'll send you replays. Some of the questions we won't be able to get to, I'll share with Daphne, and we'll do something. We'll come back with those. So, but keep pushing your questions, please.
Cool. So we've been talking a lot about content, but what about your website's technical performance? We can dive right into the next slide for that one, please. So fast load times are obviously less important from a user experience perspective if somebody's coming in through an LLM, but they're still important for your site's crawlability. So don't overlook that and make sure that we're putting some time aside for that. Making sure that our content is server-side rendered instead of client-side rendered. Hopefully is something that we all are doing anyways, unless we're running A/B tests or things like that, just because that means that it's the same results and you're more likely to rank for that. I also put HTML delivery, but you're most likely writing in HTML. So make sure that that's clean and crisp. Minimal JavaScript, still not easy to be rendered. There are sometimes some issues that we come across on building our websites as well. And block JavaScript has been one of them. So it's a place that we're putting some time into internally. Talked a lot about the structure already and internal linking. Canonical tags are important. So if you have duplicate content for whatever reason, if you're running promotions, make sure that you have your canonical tags as you normally would, so that you're showing crawlers which landing page is the right one to show for those queries. And then hreflang attributes. So if you have a multi-currency, multi-language site like hosting.com, you definitely want to make sure that you have hreflang tags implemented so that the right users get brought to the right section of your site and you're not selling shillings where pesos are needed. And then finally, sitemaps and robots.txt rules. So definitely have your XML sitemaps ready to be read and ensure that your robots.txt rules are up to date. One thing a lot of people have been talking about in regards to LLMs is an LLMs robots file, which I know has been pushed heavily by lots of different big sites like Yoast. We didn't create a separate text file for LLMs, but instead we integrated the two under the robots rules. So we actually specify different LLM models that we want crawling our site in our robots file. So it's been working extremely well, but there's still places to test and things to try. And I personally haven't tried the LLM TXT file. Going above and beyond. So from a technical perspective, how do we want to go above and beyond? We just talked about the LLMs file, structured pages. So the TLDR, summary blocks, adding details, tags, and lists where we can, and then also using semantic tags, which just helps crawlers understand what the content is about. Use them appropriately in the right places. Don't go spamming it, but when used correctly, and also one of the reasons that I like Markdown is when used correctly, it makes it very, very clear what is going on. And then, yeah, chunk detection is also important. So writing in chunks that are easy to grab and then quote in these LLM models. So we're heading towards the end. So I wanted to give you some tasks that you could do today. So start by getting to know your business on these LLMs. Chat with them, chat about your clients' businesses as well, see what's being said, report back, share your different experiences, especially if you're working in an agency and you have multiple people with multiple different accounts. It's great to get that insight and see all the different things that are being said. When we do our research as well, we don't want to just hone in on our name, but for example, for hosting.com, we maybe want to ask like, who's the best WordPress hosting provider, or where can I find the best domain name? I don't know, but play around and learn and engage and take that and allow that to structure your content strategy moving forward. If something's missing or if you're not showing up on the list, why? What are those competitors doing that you're not? What can you take and implement into your strategy? Write a new page with LLMs in mind. So adding TLDRs or key questions, summaries. I highly recommend doing that right now. And if you already have a lot of blogs existing, go and add some summaries to them and update their updated day so that you can get some rewards on that content freshness. And then finally, get yourself in front of others. So pitch your story. Write a press release about something awesome you're doing. Maybe it's a product, maybe it's a person in your team, maybe you just won an award, but put that foot forward to getting yourself mentioned. This is just a look at how to research if you want to walk away. And this just is a visual that goes along with what I was just saying. So the example here is who's the best hosting company versus why should I choose hosting.com. It's good to see the different queries and the different answers and how you show up. And then finally, use the information to build your strategy and expand into new areas. So this screenshot came from a chat that I was having with ChatGPT, and I asked about hosting.com, who's it perfect for? Oh, business owners, agencies, and developers. Now I know I can walk away and create 3 different articles targeting those different niches or audience types and answer things specifically tailored to them, because I know ChatGPT already thinks that I'm the right person to go to for this. So that means my new content that's answering these questions, it's going to rank better. That was a lot of information and a lot of yapping from me.
While you were sharing that, I was trying to get all the questions that have come in going. But hey, Daphne, wow. Okay, there's drinking from a fire hose, and today you all just got waterboarded. I was like, oh my gosh, this is 10 webinars in one. And by the way, I wanted to say, yeah, everybody clap your hands because see why I wanted her to share this. This is so much here that we could spend a lot of time on. But yeah, you see all those coming in, Daphne, for you?
Yeah, I do. Thank you guys so much. It's
She
really
was
so.
scrambling with Wi-Fi. You know, the internet has its things. And look, to be here for you. So say that. I'll put her LinkedIn too, just so you can see a little bit about Daphne and all that. But as you kind of take your breath, and if you have some water or whatever, I've got a couple of questions that came in. But in the meantime, we're just taking one moment. Go to the Q&A button right here at the bottom and post your question. We've got about 10 minutes or so that we've allotted for this time. As you can tell, Daphne's very busy. I'm so thankful for hosting.com, allowing her to share all this with you all. And so this is what we try to do at our agency success community is help you as your partner. So in the LLMs, we want to me, now this is without Daphne's vetting, but to go, that's your partner in running and your business and your agency toward your goals. We want to show up as that. So, okay. Did you get a second, Daphne?
Yes, thank you. I
You've
actually
got
don't have any water because I found this place with 10 minutes to spare for this webinar. So
I've wondered that.
I'm ready to
Um,
go.
well, thank you. Um, Hey, Daphne, in your presentation, you said you don't need links, but you do need mentions. Can you give an example of what that might look like?
Yeah. So I definitely still would recommend putting effort into getting links. But also having your brand name mentioned in any pieces of content will also be rewarded. And this is kind of a new thing because in the world of Google and historic SEO, if you didn't have that link to connect your site to that mention, you didn't get anything. So now, because LLMs have so much rich information, they can make that contextual understanding, that link, if you will, itself. So you don't actually need to get the actual link for LLMs. If you want to be showing up in Google and you want to be increasing your domain authority, you still need to get those links.
By the way, I love how you attack this because I think there's some going in the chat right now talking about needing a glossary, and I feel like you're right. But what you shared is just a bigger picture of some key things, principles that haven't changed, like whether it's EEAT or whatever. Like we're trying to share who we are for someone to make a decision, particularly if we're selling something. So I love how you've come back and broadened my mind. And hey, everybody, we can learn new things, right? So next question. Does Substack help with being found? And I would say mind maps. I saw that come in. Any other kind of media, but Substack was the
Yeah,
question.
Substack. I mean, as long as you're posting with the context of what you're trying to be building this to be found about, then yes. I mean, engaging in any of these platforms that are visible and crawlable does have that reward. It helps build your portfolio, your profile, which then in turn will make you more trustworthy to be shown in results in the future.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth says, and this is kind of in a bigger question I think people were asking earlier, which is when you're talking about blog posts, going back to your original, posts and things like that. But Elizabeth asked, should we not have, should we have dates on the blog content or not? What about dates? I guess is really the question.
Yeah, great question. Yes, definitely have your published date and have your updated on date. So those two things I highly recommend implementing into your blogs, and especially if it's something that you visit back regularly and keep updated.
Okay, someone asked,
I
I want, go
sorry,
ahead.
Corey, I'm just gonna add one more thing to that though. I do not recommend putting the date in the URL, just in the content on the blog.
Gotcha. That's good clarification, everybody. Thank you for that. She's thinking about you WordPress people, by the way. We love the
Yeah, I
WordPress too. I was
am.
just thinking of that permanently. Okay. Neil says research shows that AI summaries are lowering the number of clicks. Example, 8% with summaries, 15% without AI summaries. 26% of sessions AI overviews ended right away versus 16%. How do companies combat this challenge with big drop in rankings?
That is a really thoughtful question, and I think it's something that we're all thinking about right now. I think we need to just redefine what our KPIs are and how to measure success and what success looks like. Because sure, we probably were getting a lot of traffic to different blogs, but what was that ultimately driving your customers to do what you wanted them to do, which is likely convert on site? I don't know. I don't know the stories, but a lot of sites that I was working on myself, we'd have a lot of success in blogs, which is good. It builds authority, but it's getting that final stage, the actual transaction, is what we need to be pushing for. And some metrics are vanity metrics, like keyword portfolio size, for example. For me, I would consider that a vanity metric because even if you're ranking in position 100, your portfolio size has increased. So, but it's about redefining what success looks like and choosing that target and monitoring that. So for us, yes, clicks are down. Um, they just are, and they're probably going to go down a lot more because people are just engaging in new ways that work for them. And instead of being like, oh my God, why isn't what I used to do working? We just say, let's meet the people where they're at.
And I love that. And I've heard we've been in conversations about this, so I'm trying to push this back out to you all for a second. But it made me think, Daphne, I knew our business being around hosting for 20 years is tied to what has predominantly been for the last 20 years, Google, right? So with all this change and stuff, and I think what you're asking, by the way, is a mindset shift of saying, what are you really about? So I'm just curious. One thing that pops in my head, and I don't monitor our stats or any stats anymore, but I would think, okay, what if a brand, clicks to pages might go down. But if I think, I bought a lawnmower, for instance, I asked ChatGPT, I didn't click through that, but I went and Googled that brand name. So I'm wondering about brand searches in this, but I think that's what you're also getting at is iterate, but keep the goal of like the customer knows about us. That's what kind of pulls through. But I wanted to give you a moment to just share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you summarized it perfectly. I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, if you want metrics, and that's something, I mean, data is very important. I do go back to that Ahrefs overview is very good. And it lets you track and monitor different keywords and how people are talking about you. I don't know how accurate it is, so I don't want to like toot a horn too much because it's all new technology, and I haven't trialed as many platforms as I would have liked to at this point. But it's definitely on my agenda, and we'll do a webinar all together when I have some feedback for y'all.
Woohoo! Okay. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Neil, for that question. The next is, I'm sorry, I was trying to man the chat and look at the questions for a second. All right, we have about 3 minutes left. If you have another question here, I'm trying to get through some that are really, oh, here's one I think that came up earlier, but you said, hey, don't just go to ChatGPT to write the blog post. So would you talk just for maybe 2 more minutes about how, and by the way, take notes, everybody. She's going to give you the messaging back to your clients, how we can blog and maybe use that, but also hit the purposes of what you're sharing.
Totally. Oh my gosh. I mean, using ChatGPT for some back and forth of what good looks like and getting an understanding of what people are looking for, definitely do that. Definitely get ideas for structure, insights, but don't just then pop it in, copy and paste it, and chuck it out because you need to have data points. ChatGPT still hallucinates. Lots of those links go to nowhere. I see them all the time. And the sentence structure that it chooses, I can spot it a million miles away. It's not just semicolon. Anyways, so definitely add your personal touch. Add what makes you great. I mean, you are in your position because you're you. So share that. Dive into that. And I think our authenticity and our uniqueness is what makes us the best, and it also makes us the best in the results. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's a great way to wind this down. I know Daphne's very busy. I hope you took some great notes, everybody. Has been recorded. It will be posted to the hosting.com YouTube channel. But if you signed up for the webinar, you'll get a replay link shortly after all of this. Daphne Monroe, head of website and content hosting.com. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
today
Corey.
and sharing all of this. You all
And
say
thank you,
thanks in the
everybody.
notes.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your questions. And I will reflect on them and come back and have some better answers and actions that we can all share.
Be ready for the next one. We'll have links for you. Daphne's coming back. We've got other webinars planned for you at the agency success community. But thank you all for being here today. Let us know how it goes. If there's something you're curious about, where you go, and also tell us, hey, are we helping? Are we helping pushing forward? Because what we're doing here is giving you some amazing expertise, by the way, that you'd have to pay a lot of money to get, and you get the inside the mind of one of our awesome heroes here at hosting.com. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.